Brisket, the king of Texas barbecue, is a notoriously tough cut of meat that, when cooked properly, transforms into a thing of smoky, succulent beauty. It's a true labor of love, requiring patience, skill, and a deep understanding of the science behind smoking. This essay will guide you through the process, providing you with the knowledge and confidence to master the art of smoking brisket. At its core, smoking brisket is about breaking down tough connective tissues and rendering fat over low, slow heat. This process transforms the tough muscle fibers into tender, flavorful morsels. But it's not as simple as just throwing a hunk of meat in a smoker. It's about selecting the right brisket, trimming it with care, applying the perfect rub, and understanding the nuances of heat, smoke, and time. The journey to perfect brisket begins long before the first wisp of smoke rises from the smoker. When choosing your brisket, you'll likely encounter two primary options: packer briskets and flat briskets. The packer brisket, the true workhorse of Texas barbecue, is the whole brisket, containing both the flat and the point. The flat, as its name suggests, is a leaner, flatter cut, prized for its uniform shape, making it easier to slice. The point, on the other hand, is thicker and fattier, known for its rich flavor and melt-in-your-mouth texture. For beginners, starting with a packer brisket is recommended. It offers a more forgiving learning curve, as the higher fat content helps to prevent drying out during the long cooking process. When selecting a packer brisket, look for one that weighs between 12 and 16 pounds. This size will fit comfortably in most smokers and provide ample meat for a crowd. Once you've chosen your brisket, it's time to inspect it closely. The fat cap, the layer of fat on top of the brisket, plays a crucial role in the cooking process. It helps to insulate the meat, preventing it from drying out, and slowly renders down, basting the brisket in its own juices. Look for a brisket with a fat cap that is about 1 4-inch thick and evenly distributed. Trimming your brisket is a crucial step that should not be overlooked. It's about removing excess fat and silver skin, a tough membrane that can prevent the smoke from penetrating the meat. Start by trimming the fat cap down to about 1/2 4-inch, leaving just enough to protect the meat during cooking. Next, locate the silver skin, a thin silvery membrane that runs along the surface of the brisket. Using a sharp knife, carefully slide it under the silver skin and pull it back as you trim underneath, removing as much as possible. Trimming the silver skin can be a bit tedious, but it's well worth the effort, as it will allow the smoke to penetrate deeper into the meat, resulting in a more flavorful final product. Once you've trimmed the fat cap and silver skin, you can turn your attention to any hard pieces of fat or cartilage that may be present. These areas won't render down during cooking and can result in an unpleasant, chewy texture. Use your knife to carefully remove these imperfections, ensuring a more enjoyable eating experience. The rub is your chance to impart flavor into the brisket before it even hits the smoker. A simple rub of salt and black pepper is all you really need, but feel free to get creative and experiment with different flavor combinations. Some popular additions include garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, and cayenne pepper. When applying your rub, be generous but not excessive. You want to create a nice, even coating on all sides of the brisket, but you don't want to bury the meat in a mountain of spices. Remember, the goal is to enhance the flavor of the brisket, not to mask it. Once you've applied your rub, gently pat it into the meat, ensuring it adheres well. You can let the brisket sit with the rub on for a few hours at room temperature, or even overnight in the refrigerator. This will allow the flavors to penetrate deeper into the meat, resulting in a more flavorful final product. Section 5, the smoke wood, temperature, and time. Now comes the heart of the matter, smoking the brisket. The choice of wood is crucial, as it will impart its unique flavor profile to the meat. Oak is a popular choice for brisket, offering a bold, smoky flavor that pairs well with the richness of the meat. Other good options include hickory, pecan, and mesquite. Set your smoker to a low temperature between 225 degrees Fahrenheit and 275 degrees Fahrenheit. Low and slow is the name of the game when it comes to smoking brisket. This low temperature allows the connective tissues in the meat to break down slowly, resulting in a tender, juicy final product. Place the brisket in the smoker, fat side up, and let it smoke for several hours, maintaining a consistent temperature throughout. The cooking time will vary depending on the size of the brisket and the temperature of your smoker. but you can expect it to take anywhere from 10 to 14 hours. Section 6. The stall patience is key. As the brisket cooks, you'll notice that the internal temperature will plateau at around 150 degrees Fahrenheit to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. This is known as the stall, and it's a perfectly normal part of the smoking process. The stall occurs when moisture evaporates from the surface of the meat, creating a cooling effect that slows down the cooking process. The key to overcoming the stall is patience. Do not be tempted to crank up the heat to speed things up. This will only result in a tough, dry brisket. Instead, simply maintain a consistent temperature and let the brisket ride out the stall. It may take a few hours, but eventually the internal temperature will begin to rise again. There are a few things you can do to help the brisket power through the stall. One popular method is to wrap the brisket in butcher paper or aluminum foil. This will help to trap in moisture and heat, speeding up the cooking process. Section 7. To wrap or not to wrap. Wrapping the brisket is a matter of personal preference, and there are pros and cons to both approaches. Wrapping the brisket in butcher paper or aluminum foil, known as the Texas crutch, can help to speed up the cooking process and prevent the brisket from drying out. It can also help to create a more tender and juicy final product. However, wrapping the brisket can also mute the smoky flavor, as it prevents the smoke from penetrating the meat as effectively. If you prefer a more pronounced, smoky flavor, you may choose to skip the wrap altogether. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to wrap your brisket is up to you. If you do choose to wrap your brisket, wait until it reaches an internal temperature of around 160 degrees Fahrenheit to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. This is typically when the stall occurs, and wrapping the brisket at this stage can help it power through the plateau. Section 8. Resting, the final act. Once the brisket reaches an internal temperature of 200 degrees Fahrenheit to 205 degrees Fahrenheit, it's time to take it off the smoker. But don't you dare cut into it just yet. Resting the brisket is just as crucial as any other step in the process. Resting allows the juices to redistribute throughout the meat, resulting in a more tender and flavorful final product. Wrap the brisket in butcher paper or aluminum foil, and place it in a cooler or insulated bag to rest for at least 2 hours, or even up to 4 hours. This resting period allows the internal temperature of the brisket to even out, preventing it from drying out when you slice into it. After resting, unwrap the brisket and slice it against the grain to ensure maximum tenderness. The grain refers to the direction of the muscle fibers, and slicing against the grain shortens the fibers, making the meat easier to chew. Section 9. Troubleshooting and Serving. Even with the best intentions and careful attention to detail, things can sometimes go wrong when smoking brisket. Here are a few common pitfalls and troubleshooting tips to help you achieve brisket perfection. Dry brisket. If your brisket turns out dry, it's likely due to undercooking or overcooking. Make sure to use a meat thermometer to monitor the internal temperature of the brisket throughout the cooking process. Tough brisket. A tough brisket is often a sign of undercooking. Brisket needs to cook to an internal temperature of 200 degrees Fahrenheit to 205 degrees Fahrenheit to break down the tough connective tissues. Lack of smoke flavor. If your brisket lacks smoke flavor, it could be due to using the wrong type of wood, not soaking your wood chips, or wrapping the brisket too early. Once your brisket is cooked to perfection, it's time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Serve it sliced on a platter with your favorite barbecue sides, such as potato salad, coleslaw, and baked beans. And don't forget the sauce. While a perfectly smoked brisket doesn't need sauce, it's always a welcome addition.